back to its layer where it is supported.
Seems like the effects of gravity equals the path of least resistance. It seems like they have one and the same. They have something in common.
Some stuff can hover in the air if the medium can support it, though.
Hey, Slick, when are you going to finish the cycle? Do you know the unfinished cycle I'm referring to, Slick?
I don't know if you're cutting out or I'm not hearing you or what's happening here.
Again, when are you going to finish the cycle? Do you know which unfinished cycle I'm referring to?
No, we were talking about the difference between an item having its own weight and what's the difference between that than having a gravitational force on it. It seems like they're one and the same.
I've given you an example before, and I'll give it to you again. Now, you claim when you pick up a rock and drop it, it's just completing the cycle, going back to where it came from, and just, expending the energy that you put into it to pick it up. Now, the question that I always ask you, you come across a rock that's up on ground level near the edge of the Grand Canyon. You put very little energy into moving it sideways until it just falls down. When does it complete the cycle and come back up from
Right.
whence
That's
it
what
came?
Sure, that's what I said. You have to complete the cycle by putting it back up because you can use your own example, but instead of starting at the top, then start at the bottom and do the same thing and you'll get the same result.
Obviously, you get the problem here, and you're just avoiding it, and this is game over for you.
All
So
right, but we don't have to continue it. If you think I'm avoiding it, we don't have to continue.
Oh, you're obviously avoiding it. It wrecks you, and you don't want to deal with it. You want to say
So
something.
like I said, I gave you the best explanation what I could in the argument, and if not acceptable, then all we can do is move on.
Yeah, we can move on. The understanding that you're wrong, you're right.
I'm not understanding anything. Only thing I'm understanding is that you didn't understand what I'm talking about, so we can just move
we
on.
all understand. We all understand, and we all know you're wrong.
Okay, well, I mean, if you're going to go on this "we all" thing, like as if this is some type of
don't
consensus,
speak for me, you
then I mean,
fuckwit.
sure.
Slick,
You want to support Slick here, all of us?
Slick, everything does exert a gravitational pull, yes. The planet exerting a gravitational pull on a certain type of mass would be like gravitational energy on that planet. There would be more on the Earth than on the moon, because there's more stuff, mass at the center of the Earth pulling the object than at the moon. So there would be more gravitational energy on the Earth than the moon to pull the mass. So you have the mass separate from the gravity in that way, because the weight would be generated on the scale or whatever when the center of the planet pulls the mass with its strength. It's kind of circular, but that's what the paradigm says anyway.
Well, yeah, I understand what their paradigm is saying. I'm just arguing against it.
That's fine. Your theory works for you, and that's okay. I don't think you'll be able to design and build things using that theory because it's not very complete. But if it makes you happy, that's okay. You don't have to accept it.
There you go. Now, here the thing is, Truth Seeker, we just posted a couple pictures of some structures that were built without gravity in mind, and they built them pretty well, right? How did they do that? How did the Romans pull off that dome? How did the Romans pull off that?
I'm sure there's lots of structures built without needing to understand gravity. That's true. However, there's a lot of technology that does require it as well. So if you feel fine with your theories there, that's okay. You don't need to accept Newton.
Well, I mean, you're just making a statement. I mean, you're just kind of saying stuff.
So are you. Except I do stuff with my stuff.
What you do is so highly advanced that only few life forms can understand it. I mean, it's kind of purposeless.
No, people who like an education can understand it.
Right.
Lots of people can understand who have an education.
You mean with your degree of education, right? Yeah, which is pretty high, right? What is your degree of education? What is your degree of education?
We'll just leave it at pretty high.
I know, but what is it? What do you have? PhD?
I'm not going to go into personal details more than I have already.
Okay.
I mean, what do we mean by gravity? We had to go to the center of the Earth and see that stuff was attracted to the center of the Earth, or we just dropped something and, timed how long it took it to fall? I mean, how much of a linkage is really here between, gravity and building?
Not quite true, Lemon. It's not the center of the Earth. It is the entire mass of the Earth.
I mean, we
only talk about the center of the Earth because you can prove that for a spherical mass, you can treat it as if that is a point mass at the center of the sphere.
I'm just saying,
as long as you're outside of the mass. That's for the mass.
As long as you're outside the mass. As long as you're outside the mass, you can treat it as if that entire mass was concentrated at one point.
I'm just saying, people are smart. They make it work. I'm just wondering how much of the model is really related to this gravity stuff. I mean, did they make it work, with or without gravity, in spite of this theory?
I don't know. I do it. There's lots of calculations that use gravity for, like I said, building specific structures. Not all structures need gravity, but most modern complicated structures involve gravity in the calculations. There's lots of other engineering things like rocket propulsion and planes that involve gravity calculations. But sure, if you have your own personal theory that works for you, and if you want to do some math with it or design something or not, that's up to you.
But if you just kept it simple, hold on. If you just kept it simple and just go to a rock falling instead of rocket science, if a rock fell and it had its own weight and found the path of least resistance, wouldn't it do the exact same thing as it would do if the gravity was involved and it didn't have its own weight? Wouldn't those two exact same things happen?
If that works for you, that's fine.
I'm not asking what works for me. I'm asking, is that what would happen?
That seems to be a useless description for me because it's not a complete theory. It does not involve mathematics and allows us to make predictions and build on. So for me, that's
but
not
I'm only talking. Hold on. I'm only talking about a rock falling. I'm not talking about predictions. I'm just talking about the simple act of a rock dropping. Isn't it? If a rock had its own weight and found the path of least resistance to the Earth, isn't that the same thing as a rock not having its own weight, but a gravitational pull pulling it to the Earth? Aren't those two things identical? That's all I'm asking.
Possibly. It depends exactly what you mean by that. I don't know exactly what you mean by that because you're not very specific.
When you're saying a rock has its own, when you're saying a rock has its own weight, Slick, you're saying a rock has its own force.
All I'm saying, I'm not saying anything about a force. I'm just saying without gravity, what I'm doing is I'm giving you two scenarios, one with gravity and one without. Now that's all I'm doing.
It's a broken question.
Your scenario without gravity is not a detailed description. You're lacking information there.
So in other words, you can't understand anything without the word gravity in it. It's just beyond you. You just can't connect with it. Is that what you're telling me?
No, that's not what I said. See, what happens is you don't need to use the word gravity. You do not need to use gravity, but you need to have an actual complete description. There are other complete descriptions. You can compare this to alchemy a long time ago when they just had these kind of vague explanations for things. You have an alchemist explanation for things, but there's no detail, no math in it.
But it's just a simple question about a rock falling. This has got nothing to do with alchemy.
No reason for down.
Yeah, Slick, they're just being evasive. It's plain and simple.
Curved answer
so easy to
explicitly just now.
Absolute evasion.
Curve gave the best brief answer and answered the whole thing. Weight doesn't have an intrinsic, reason to be accelerating in that downward direction. A downward direction implies that there's a force in that direction, and weight is actually it is described as a force, but it's not isolated from. No.
All right, Coach, let me ask you a question. Since you seem to understand this.
Well, it's Curve's answer, by the way. Go ahead.
I know, I heard you, but you seem to be able to explain it, so maybe you understand it too. If a rock had its own weight, right now, forget about gravity. Just act like it doesn't exist. If a rock had its own weight and you dropped it, what would it do?
And Blue Marble Science said it as well just now that it was a broken question because what you're asking is if a rock had its own intrinsic force in that downward direction, would it act? Yeah, of course. If for some reason it had a downward force that existed in anything, everything has their own force, then sure, it would behave the same way as if they were an actual force doing this thing. But that explanation doesn't make sense, and it's even weird. It's seem weird saying that it
So
has
you're
its own
saying that's
intrinsic force
right.
downward.
So in other words, you're saying that a rock having its own weight just doesn't make any sense, and you just can't compute that, right?
No, it has a mass, and the weight comes from the relationship between the force and its mass.
Damn.
So it's not intrinsic into the object.
I said, dude, I'm just talking about the weight of an object. I'm not saying anything about mass. All I'm saying is that
define weight. Define what you mean by weight when you say that.
What I am talking about is an object having its own substance and its own weight because of that substance.
What is weight?
Weight is what the object has because of its substance. In other words, it has 200 pounds worth of substance in it.
What is 200 pounds? What does that mean? You're just talking in circles.
I know. It's an amount of weight.
Right. What is weight?
That's what. Oh my. What the?
There's a problem. You don't have a definition for what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, let me help you out. Okay, I can help you. Let's go back way before that they had Newton. Right now, what did they see as an object having?
I don't care. You're saying an object.
I know you don't care, but that's a problem. You're not caring. Hold on, truth seeker. Truth seeker, slow down.
I'm asking you a question.
Dude, slow down for a second. You not caring is a problem here.
Mean with weight. I don't care what they meant 100 years ago. I don't care what they meant 100 years ago.
Because this will answer the question. If you cared, then you will understand where I'm coming from. If you don't care, you're not going to understand me.
You're asking. We've used fire for hundreds of thousands of years.
I'm not talking about fire.
You don't need to understand what fire is.
I'm not talking about fire.
Fire used to be viewed as a magical thing.
I'm not talking about fire.
Exothermic chemical reaction.
I'm talking about weight of a rock.
Yes, and
I'm not talking about fire.
They didn't understand what weight
let's
was.
Talk about
they just
rock.
used it.
Let's talk about the rock. I want to stay with the rock if you don't mind. Okay, I'm going to explain to you.
That point.
I am going to explain to you what weight is if you're willing to follow me in my line of reasoning. Now, the reason I'm using weight is because before gravity was ever a thing, they looked at an object of having its own weight. Now, that is the weight that I am talking about. Now, do you understand me or no?
No, I don't, because they didn't know what it was. So explain to me what weight is.
Okay, so they didn't understand an object's weight is what you're telling me?
Well, tell me what weight was, not what an object's weight is. We're talking about the property of the attribute. We're not talking about the substance that that attribute comes from. Weight is an inherent property of the
How did they
mass.
treat? In other words, how did they look at a rock before Newton?
Because they said this rock and that rock weigh the same amount. Oh, look, it balances on a set of scales. That's about as much as it did, which is gravity acting on both sides of the scale. Two objects of equal weight.
Dan, what is wrong with this dude? I said before Newton's time.
Slick, slow down, take a breath. You are the one asking a question about weight. Take a breath, calm down. You are asking a question about weight. So I don't care what people a long time ago meant. I want to know what you define as weight. You're the one asking the question, so you need to explain what weight is.
Okay, and I can explain it. It's the same concept that they had of weight before Newton's time. The same concept.
I don't know what they had before Newton's time. I want to know what
Okay, well then let's drop it. Okay, then here's... Okay, we have reached an impasse. I'm ready to drop it. I said we have reached an impasse.
You can't explain.
Okay, whatever the reason is, we've reached an impasse. I'm ready to drop it.
So, Slick, this is the difference in your question between your explanation and the one with gravity. The one with gravity explains the terms and all the details involved. Your explanation uses words that you cannot explain.
Okay, I said we've reached an impasse. I am ready to drop it. What part of that phrase don't you...
You can't even explain
whatever the reason is. Listen, whatever the reason is, I'm ready to drop it. If you want to say it's because of me and it's my fault and you feel the need to make this understood, no problem. I'm just done with this.
Okay, that's okay. Sure.
Big room here with a lot of people. I'm sure there's other conversations. Besides this, we've reached an impasse. I'm ready to let it go.
Sure.
Back to the Pantheon.
Go back to the rock you crawled on.
Explain the cycle of the Grand Canyon stone.
Okay. I did it once before. I can do it again. Now, when you talk about the grant, I'm good. Are you asking me or no? Because I don't want to say
that's not true. You didn't do it before.
Oh, okay. So let me try it again. Now, are you talking about when you're standing at the top and you're kicking a rock down, right? Now, that's the starting point, correct? I just want to be clear. That's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So now here's the thing. Now, you can look at that same situation by starting from the bottom and trying to get that rock up to the point where you're kicking it from. So are you with me so far?
No, you're avoiding it already.
Okay, well, let me see if I can explain. Because you're talking about, okay, sure. But you're talking about starting something from the top and that rock ending up on the bottom, right? Now, what I am telling you,
returning to where it came from.
Listen, exactly. I know. If you'll follow me, I'm trying to explain it to you. But if you're just going to keep, I know. But if you're just going to cut me off, then I'm wasting my time.
Oh, you're wasting everyone's time, Slick. What's new?
Cut me off from telling you it, and then blame me like I did something wrong.
No, I cut you off from repeating the same lie that avoids the question.
Okay, well then I'll tell you what. Then we're at an impasse, and I'm going to drop the question because apparently I can't answer it.
You can never finish a point, Slick. You have nothing.
Fine, exactly. So that's 2 times. That's 2 times I was not able to complete a thought. So I'm ready to move on and pass the mic to somebody else in the room.
You declared impasse.
I failed to explain it, so I'm ready to move on.
Okay, that's not an impasse. That's just your inability.
I know. Okay, so I've reached a point where my inability to explain has been reached, and I'm ready to move on.
I made a mistake.
Were you on your knees when you said that?
I misspoke.
Now, are we going to move on to something else or what?
Just making sure that the white flag is clear. Slick, pick a topic you can win.
Curved, what part of I misspoke do you not understand?
I failed to misspeak.
Like I said, what happened was you asked the question. When I went to answer it, you cut me off and said that I can't answer it my way, so that means I lose. I understand how the game works.
You're given this same non-answer, Slick, and you're
lying
in the non-answer.
But see, just because my answer, you determine that it's a non-answer, that means that you establish the rules of what an answer is and what a non-answer is. So I can't do anything in that world where you make the rules.
Go ahead.
I can't do
that.
Thank
you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead. Unbeat it. Everybody.
Hold on. May I please thank? May I please thank? Fucking this guy for actually expressing the problem of this room. Well, he just expresses the problem of anyone talking in this room. Not just what he's saying. But anyone.
Thank you for that. Now,
No, curved. Listen, with anyone that's got anything to fucking say, he overtalked by some motherfucker that thinks they're no better than them.
You're over talking him right now. Let him be. Slick wants to finish. Go ahead.
Go ahead, curved. What was it that you had to say?
Go ahead, Slick. It's all you.
Okay, thank you. So now, like I said, in explaining your situation where about the rock, you kicking it from the canyon, you can also do the same thing because you're starting at the rock ends up on the bottom. Now, you can also go to the bottom and see how you're going to get that rock back to the top. See, so you have 2 of the same scenarios, and both of those scenarios will complete the cycle. It doesn't matter where you start. You can start at the top and then go to the bottom and get the rock back up, or you can start at the bottom, get the rock to the top, and get it back down. It's still a complete cycle, no matter how you look at it.
Takes a lot more effort to get the rock back up the top than it does to put it back down.
And you know why that is? And let me tell you why that is, Druss, is because the rock has its own weight.
Druss, you have to understand, in Slick's world, it completes its own cycle.
Well, no, it needs manual intervention. He just said
in Slick's world, it completes its own cycle. So that's what I'm looking for. The completion of the cycle. When is that rock going to jump back up to the top.
I'm sorry, Curve. At what point, Curve, does Slick's world not make sense?
Branch, you're such a fucking useless vandal, man.
Hey, I'm Branch. This is what I do.
Curve, let me ask you a question. If you started at the bottom and you wanted to get that rock back, or just get that rock to the top, what would you have to do to get it up there?
You're gonna have.
Hey, don't hate on the fucking game. Don't hate on the fucking game. Hate on the player, bro.
Now, what happens when you start at the top?
I know, but I'm asking you.
In the way the rules work in your game, it completes the cycle. Yet we don't see that. Your world is debunked. Next.
Well, I know you're. See, like I said, if this is the rules and you just decide when it's over and next, well, then I can't compete with that.
Okay,
so rules. They're your rules.
Let's say we kick the rock off the top of the Grand Canyon. It falls all the way down to the bottom. I'm now watching that rock. How long is it going to take to get back up to the top?
This is what you're missing. Now, I can explain this to you, but you have to listen to what I'm saying. Now, let's start at the bottom. With that same rock at the bottom, what are you going to have to do to get that rock to the top?
I'm not going to touch it because it's going to complete its own cycle.
I didn't ask you that. I said you're starting at the bottom. This is your starting point. Now, what would you have to do to get that rock to the top?
I don't know.
It's not going to go up there by itself, is it?
No.
So you'd have to put some energy into getting it up there, correct?
I'd have to put a hell of a lot more energy into getting it up there than I would have to knock it down.
I understand that, but I only asked you what you have to do to get the rock up to the top. That's all we're talking about, one direction. You'd have to put energy into it to get it up there, correct?
But where does all the rest of the energy go to put into it?
Dude, do you understand this, or are you trying to go to step 2 before step 1 is done?
No, I'm trying to understand. I'm just asking the very simple question. Why does it seem to take so much more energy to bring that rock back to the top of the Grand Canyon than it did for me to send it down?
I know. We're going to get there. If you'll be a little patient, we'll get there. But you're trying to put the cart before the horse, so you're trying to move too fast. I'm trying to slow you down so that you can understand.
Well, you explain it. You don't have to ask me questions.
Well, I'll explain it one more time. If you start at the bottom with the rock, it's going to take energy to get it up to the top because that rock has weight. Now, when you get to the top and push it back down, its own weight will bring it back to where it came from by the path of least resistance.
Yeah, but you've got no reason why it's going down.
Why?
Like
there's no explanation why that rock is going downwards.
I said, where did the rock come from?
Because no, the only thing you said is reasons.
Okay, but didn't we start with the rock at the bottom? That's where it started, right?
No, you changed the scenario from me kicking a rock off the top to the rock now being at the bottom. And now we're starting at the bottom to bring it back to the top. Now that rock may have started at the top of the cliff and not at the bottom. Okay. And now it's no longer where it started. It's in a different place.
No problem. So let's deal with that. So now let's start at the top. So now we kick the rock, and because it has its own weight, it will go down to the bottom effortlessly.
Why?
Now to get that rock back up, because it has its own weight. Because
that's not a reason why. It has weight. We all agree on that. Why is it going downwards and not upwards?
Because in order for it to go upwards, you have to put energy into it because it has its own weight.
Why does weight make things go down?
When you talk about things going down, isn't there also an up?
Didn't you get there?
Why does weight make things go down?
No, I heard you, but when you say down, I want you to understand there is also an up.
Wonderful.
To down, right?
Why does it make it go down?
Do you understand? I just need you to understand this point first. Okay, yes. Now that's
I
because
the question.
Up and down. Okay, thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
It was a really sick game. I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. At least I think it is, and I don't.
Like I said, I gave you an explanation of what's happening. If you don't want to accept it or say it's stupid because I'm dumb and I can't explain things, then I understand that.
you're a retarded liar, and you're
I understand. That's no problem. Listen, you're the final authority, and if you declare that I'm a retarded liar according to the rules of this room, you have spoken, and that's the end of it.
That's just common sense, Slick.
You haven't explained the vector. That's the problem we're all having, Slick.
See, if you understand that the rock has its own weight, you will understand what I'm talking about.
He's just trying to keep you in the game.
When you take a rock that has its own weight and you lift it off the ground and you let it go, that rock is going to find its way back to the ground by the path of least resistance. Now, that's very simple.
Yeah, and the question is, why?
Weight.
Let's agree with that for a second. Yeah, it will. Now, if that rock gets shaken loose for whatever reason from the side of the canyon wall and falls down to the bottom, why does it not go back up where it came from?
Because when an object has its own weight, it takes energy to move it upward. Downward is no problem. It's moving it upward because you're fighting against its weight.
There you go. Now you're getting there.
Yes, that's what I said. Yeah, I'm getting there, dude. I've been saying it all the time. The object has its own weight.
Because of gravity.
That's what I've been saying. Maybe now you're getting there.
By definition, that's a force.
Wow, we've gotten to gravity.
By definition, the rock has its own weight. Now you're getting there.
Weight, by definition, is a force, Slick.
No, by definition, the rock has its own weight.
Weight is not inherent in anything.
Yes, weight is here, Blue, because if you'll go back way before Newton's time, that's what the rock had, weight.
Weight is not inherent in an object. It's not an inherent property.
Hold on, I'm talking to Blue. Now, Blue, before Newton's time, did a rock have its own weight?
No, it did not.
So they understood that a rock was being pulled by gravity way before Newton's time.
At no point in the history of the universe does anything had an inherent property known as weight.
Okay, but this is what I'm asking you, Blue. Before Newton's time, before gravity was ever a thing, what did they conceive of the object to have?
You can call it anything you want to.
Dude, just answer the question.
I'm telling you, this is the fact. Like, weight is not
That's not my question. Blue, are you going to answer my question? Are you going to answer my question or no?
I know you guys think I'm old, but I didn't really live in Newton's time. I don't know what they thought it was. Bullshit. I don't know what they called it. I really have never studied it. It didn't matter to me.
Oh, so you started understanding life after Newton in history? Is that when you started understanding the world?
So, Slick, I just want to go back. I mean, this is the example I used, Blue, to sort of explain the problem with where I think Slick's coming from. We've used fire for hundreds of thousands of years.
Dude, I don't know. Okay,
it's only recently that we understand how fire actually works. At one point, it was considered an element. Yeah, and under the Greek method, and we've realized the error of that view of it, and we have corrected it. But we still used fire before we understood it. The same way as we observed the fact that we observe properties of weight.
I'm quite sure every caveman understood it took more effort to pick up a big rock than it did to pick up a little rock.
You know,
what they called it and what they related that to is another question altogether. I don't know.
If Slick thought
fire
was an element, I bet you would still be sitting here eagerly trying to explain to him why it wasn't.
I don't know why you want to derail away from the conversation. If this helps you, I mean, if it's a good derail tactic, go ahead and use it. Because I'm talking about the weight of a rock. I'm not talking anything about fire. I'm not trying to derail from the idea that a rock has its own weight. Now, if you think fire can save you, go for it.
Can we come in here to get away from chemo?
Just define what you mean by weight, and it's all over. It's very simple. If you're using weight to believe in everyone else, define what it means.
Weight as an object having its own weight, like they understood before Newton existed.
That's not a definition. You're talking in circles. What is weight?
I'm not. Weight is...
Yes, it is. You just said weight is
I'm
weight.
telling you. I'm telling you, an object has substance to it, right? In other words, there's substance that makes up an object, right?
Yes.
Okay, that substance has weight. In other words, when it has weight, it's made of something. In other words, it's not a ghost. You understand what I'm saying?
No. I
Okay,
don't understand how that's the definition of weight. You're just saying a substance is made of stuff, and that stuff is not a ghost. So what? You still haven't said what weight is.
You need to define
property of the object. Okay, I'm telling you, weight is the property of the object's substance.
Which property?
The weight part.
Yeah, you can't define weight by using the word.
I'm sorry, what?
Right? You cannot define the word weight by using the word weight. That's not a definition of weight. You can't use the same word to define itself.
Okay, a property, an object's substance. That's what I'm talking about.
The object's substance, you mean like it's made out of metal?
Yes.
Substance is what element it's made out of.
Yes, I'm telling you, an object has substance like a steel beam. It's made out of steel.
So steel is weight? So
steel,
wood isn't weight?
I'm telling you, if you listen, it's made out of steel, and that steel has properties. The steel has the property of that it takes energy to move it because of its properties.
Okay, but which property is weight? Define the property that you were calling weight.
The steel has properties, and those properties.
But we understand that.
Okay, so if you understand it, what is the problem?
But your steel has properties. Steel can have a color too. That's the property of steel. You're talking about weight. What is weight?
Weight is something that it takes energy to move. That's what weight is.
Weight is just something. That's the full definition of weight. It's just something that takes energy to move.
Listen. You seem to have a problem understanding weight, so I'm trying to describe it to you.
You can't define the problem.
Wait. So Slick, that's your definition. That's your personal interpretation. Weight
I'm trying to understand what weight is, so I'm. In other words, it's like a brick is made of the substance that makes it a brick, right?
Slick, the problem is you use weight differently than everyone else, so that we need to understand how you use it. You are not clearly defining what you mean by weight.
Yeah, we really need to understand what this idiot
object. Okay, now let me try it one more time.
We can't go on with our day.
An object has its own substance. Now, do you understand that so far?
How can an object have
I just need to know if you understand that so far.
Sure, we'll say yes for now.
Okay, it's just that simple.
But that wasn't a definition of weight. You just said an object has its own substance.
Yes, I just explained it to you because an object has its own substance. That's it.
That's not an explanation of weight. That's just saying an object has its own substance.
Right, and that is the explanation of weight. An object having its own substance is the definition of weight.
You don't understand how that makes no sense.
You don't. Because if you take an object, hold on. If you take an object that has its own substance, right? Now, what would happen to that object if you doubled the substance? You would have twice as much of that object, right? Are you following me?
Yes, we're following you.
Okay, so now, so I'm telling you, if you have if you have a brick. Hold on, dude. If you want an explanation, you got to let me give it to you without you fighting me in the background. Now, if you have an object,
you're not actually defining anything.
Dude,
you're just
because you keep talking too much.
Why
do you keep on talking? Tell us how weight has weight again.
Now, once again, if you have an object that is made of a certain amount of substance, if you double that substance, now you have twice as much of that object. Now, are you with me so far?
Absolutely.
Okay, now those differences are the differences of weight.
What different, dude?
So you mean volume, for example? Because that's if I double a substance, then I have twice as much volume. Then I can measure how much space it takes.
True.
I don't think you're talking about volume.
So if you have, let's say you have a standard size brick, right?
This is a grown man you're talking to, Truth Seeker.
Now, if you
this is an adult.
Okay, this is where it gets derailed because Lewis is here, so I know what's happening now.
Well, Lewis raises a fair point. The question at the moment is Slick being more deliberately obtuse than Truth Seeker, or is Truth Seeker totally unaware of what Slick is doing?
At a certain point, you have to ask yourself, is it insulting to everybody in this room, Truth Seeker, to think that you are just going to explain something to him and everyone else here?
Okay, Lewis, I'm going to do you a favor. I withdraw from the conversation.
We heard you. You withdraw the question.
And I am going to pass the mic to someone else.
I mean, it's fine if you want to talk to him. It's just,
I'm passing the mic. I'm passing the mic, Lewis. There's no need for this. I'm passing the mic, Lewis. There's no need for you to keep on continuing. So there's no need to continue. I'm passing it.
Good.
I have no expectation that Slick will ever understand anything I say.
I'm passing the mic. Now, if you're going to keep on going, I'm not passing anything. So make up your mind. But I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Now, if you're going to keep bringing my name up, then I'm going to keep on talking about the conversation. Now, make up your mind. Do you want to move on or not?
Somebody asked me a question, and I'd like to respond to them.
Okay, well, don't talk about me, please. I'd appreciate it.
But the question was about you, so I'd like to respond.
Okay, well, then I want to talk about you then, because I have a question about you that I would like to talk about instead.
Then wait your turn, Slick.
Then you can talk about me all you want, Slick.
Now, make up your mind. What you want to do? Do you want to move on, or do you want to continue? It's up to you.
Somebody asked me a question about you, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, well, then tell them you don't want to answer the question about me because you can't speak for me. Tell them that. Tell them that, because you don't know me, and I can speak for me. If anybody wants to know about me, all you have to do is ask me. You don't have to ask Truth Seeker about me. Now, that's how that works.
At a certain point, when you're talking about like these really retarded, simple concepts, and you're talking to him, it's like everybody here has already explained this to him. There is no...
Kimo, I think Lewis was talking.
It's uncalled for, unacceptable. Somebody moderate Kimo, please.
Can someone mute Kimo for over talking, please?
Kimo needs moderation. He's out of line.
It's like, I don't know. It just comes across.
Hold on.
You can talk about whatever.
Jam, are you here? Kimo. No, hold on. Kimo. Let me talk, my man. Why the fuck does Lewis, being a bus driver, have anything to do with this?
Would anybody like to go to another room away from Kimo?
No. Why you doing this big ass fucking thing about fucking Lewis being a bus driver? Who gives a fucking job? Who gives a fucking fuck about what the fuck Lewis does?
Hey, Branch, it's fine. I don't.
Fucking fuck.
I mean, I appreciate.
What Lewis fucking does. Why the fuck are you making a big deal about fucking him being a bus? You know what? Hey, Kimo. You know what? First of all, Lewis.
So what qualifies you to talk on science, Kimo? If he's a bus driver, what are you that makes you? What are you? What are you? What do you do for a living, Kimo?
All right, I'm going to ask the question one more time. Does anybody else want to go to another room?
Hold on.
Let's leave Kimo alone. I'm going. See you later.
I want people to stop talking to Kimo.
Okay, then. Well, if we can get back to whatever else we were doing before that eruption happened.
I could answer your question, Lewis, if you want.
Yeah. What is it like coming from your point of view? Because, like from my point of view, this is just an unreasonable person that should be ignored.
Sure, I understand that. Going back to the original question you asked me before chaos ensued, I was going to answer Lewis's question. Okay. So rewinding to try and answer Lewis's question to me about engaging with Slick in this manner. No, again, I do not have any expectation that Slick will understand anything I say. However, I like to point out the fundamental. A lot of people argue, in my opinion, with him and like kind of they take it away from the fundamentals. And for me, the problem is that this kind of fundamental understanding, and this, I find it interesting to highlight that fundamental flaw, that he doesn't understand the words he's using. I find that entertaining is why I do it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right. That's fine for you to do. There's nothing that you are going to say to him that has not already been said to him at least a dozen times. But that's
yeah. I have zero expectation that he's going to understand anything or change his mind. I don't have any expectation of that.
Now, Kimo, can I ask you a question, sir? Do you think that there's any, does Truth Seeker have the ability to understand what I'm telling him, even though I've told him a dozen times and he still doesn't get it yet? Do you think that he'll ever have the ability to understand, Kimo?
Awesome.
So it seems that Lewis has a problem. I mean, it seems like he has the problem with conversations flowing. I mean, it seems like he can go do something else if the conversation is bothering him. It's not like he just has to just sit here and deal with it. He can always go somewhere else, right?
It's like James. The thing is,
it's fine. You don't have to like my opinion. You can go somewhere else if you don't like my opinion.
Good point, Russ. Very good point.
These conversations are derailed before they start. Don't fool yourself. No, there's nothing we talk about here that is complex and deep.
maybe you could adjust your methods of engagement to reflect that understanding. You're not having a conversation. You're just getting quick points then to show the utter ridiculousness of Slick's position, let's say. Is that a foreign concept to you, Truth Seeker? Can you operate in a manner? Do you have like some kind of disagreement with that? Is it morally unjust? Excuse me, can somebody, how do I get the point across that I was addressing Truth Seeker? I'm not sure why I'm getting all this mod interference here, but I was trying to ask Truth Seeker a question about his methods of engagement, given what he said he understands and expects.
What did you want to ask me, Curved?
Nah, forget it. You don't pay attention anyway, and it's not like your opinion means anything to me.
Okay. No problem.
Luis, if you have any topics in mind, you can maybe entertain us and tell us what do you want to talk about. But you're not Luis, Kimo. I asked Luis directly.
Yeah. Other people love, Kimo loves commenting on everybody else apart from himself because that's like his job.
I mean, for what it's worth, I have Kimo turned all the way down, so I don't have to listen to him. And I recommend everybody else do that too.
Oh, I have him on 3% just so I can see on his live.
Give up, Chris. Never give up.
3% is precisely 3% too high.
But Kimo, you need to understand the dynamics of the voice chat. Nobody wants to carry with that. Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to hear you, Kimo, as well. It's not a decent conversation. I disagree.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like, you guys are free. Like, just because I'm judging you and expressing that judgment doesn't mean that you can't have the conversation.
No, man, it's totally fine, dude. It's just like, if you have anything to talk to, we can talk. Maybe someone can come up with an idea. I mean, I have something in mind from yesterday, but I think this is a little bit more deep into philosophy than anything now. So I think it will be a hard transaction to go into that topic. So if you have anything in mind, please tell us. We can talk about movies, it's not a problem. We can talk about buses, wheels, cars, anything. It's not a problem. As long as it's a discussion we can all entertain, it's not a problem.
Oh,
Maybe Slick can learn something.
I've noticed an interesting observation in my experience is that, you know, some people can monologue for 10 minutes and not get any barracking from certain people in the room, and other people say 10 words and they're accused of monologuing, and long story short. I find that a bit weird, a bit inconsistent.
I agree.
That's just to do with the predilections of the listener.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just depends as to the tone of voice and as to whether it affects you and how it affects you.
Yeah, that's true.
Nice profile picture, Andrea.
Thank
Very
you.
tempting.
It's a pencil drawing.
Is that you? Sorry, you're drawing, not you. Your bum.
No.
So I realised that question came out badly wrong when I said it.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
No,
No, I'm not struggling.
we're not struggling, you know?
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No, I'm not. Can you stop putting words in my mouth?
It's kind of ironic that I think he re-say everything that we said, like, from the past 2 years. It's like the same shit. Like, yeah, man, it's the same shit, the same arguments, the same conversation, and again and again and again. What do you expect? So the thing is, can I say something, Kimo? Like, when you try to talk about the globe Earth or the flat Earth, it's like someone coming to my home and telling me, "Do you live in a home? How do you know it's a home? Do you have a roof on your home?" It's very obvious the answer is, and we've given you many details. Like, I don't know how many. Like, I feel poor for some of the people here that they got used to it. They adapted to this, some type of people, that they get entertained by it so much that whenever you talk about something else, they don't really feel that passionate about it. Like, you sickened some people's mind, to be honest, Kimo. Like, you truly changed people's behaviors and adaptation, that they're so addicted to talking to flat earthers like you and like Slick and like many others. But we did this. We did a lot. We compared proofs. We compared mathematical equations. We compared observation. Like, for example, with the black swan. How many times we discussed the black swan, Kimo? How many times? Just tell me how many times we discussed it. A lot. A lot. See? Don't you think it's a little bit far-stretched that we never discuss, like, the nature of our own reality, but you keep discussing certain trivia things that we all agree that it's false? Not because we agree it's false, it's because we know it's false based on many other observations and evidence.
I'm sure you're a nice guy.
The fault is yours because you don't know the sciences, you don't know the knowledge, and you're talking from a point of ignorance. That's your fault. You need to educate yourself. That's why we can reach a conclusion. It's your fault. It's your fault. Yep. I mean, you didn't study mathematics, you didn't study physics, so of course it's your problem. Because we did. We know more than you do about this world, and yet you claim that we're wrong. Do your own homework, do your own job. Hold on, do your own job. Go back to the school, go to grade 1 till grade 8, till grade 12, learn the physics and mathematics, then we can talk like adults. Because I feel like I'm talking like a child with a child every time. So what? You always do this. What do you do, Kimo? What do you do, Kimo, in life? What do you do, Kimo? Kimo, what do you do in life? See,
Bye. I have a question. I have a question for Lewis. Lewis, what do the wheels on the bus do?
Nice guy.
I have a question. I have a question. Someone can answer. What do you do in life? What do you do? Kimo, what do you do in life?
Nice guy. Do you want to hear from Kimo? Nice guy.
Yeah, I want to hear from
you. Want to
yeah, I do.
Kimo? Why?
Kimo, what do you do in life?
See, there's another reason for Nice Guy to be banned. Everybody should unite against Nice Guy.
LOL.
God, is this the Kimo monologue? Is it just nonstop monologue?
No, that's Kimo here. Oh, is Kimo here? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm surprised that other people aren't moaning about that someone's monologuing and not making a long story short.
Oh, what happened to Unity? Unity.
You're confused, Kimo.
Nice guy.
Look.
Why are you fucking entertaining
Lewis, what would you rate as the best movie ever made about driving a bus?
Probably Speed, but there aren't very many, and they aren't very good.
That's a
How about Summer Holiday? Summer Holiday?
No, that's good. It's Clifford.
And I think that's an excellent topic you came up with there, Lewis, talking about buses, popcorn.
I care about movies.
There's the classic last scene in The Young Ones as well, where they put the bus over the cliff.
Oh, what about fucking the what's that Michael Caine one, the robbery one? The Italian Job.
Oh yeah. And don't forget the buses that were in Batman Returns or Batman
Rises. That was a good bus.
Con Air has a bus scene as well.
What has?
The best bus scene was
Air.
Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
Remember at the end.
Superman, I think, has a bus scene, doesn't it?
Speed's probably the best one though.
Probably.
Yeah. Because it's about a bus that's going to blow up if it goes below a certain speed, so it's a fairly focused.
Fuck me. I actually want to see. Hey, Kimo, I actually want to see how long they could keep up the meaningless chit chat. Yeah.
You haven't. You're making me go deeper into delusion by bringing only nonsense. This is how I feel. You're making all of them go deeper into their delusion by only bringing nonsense. I'm saying you're making it worse.
With meaningless chit chat, they're not challenged, so they're very comfortable with that.
Come on, Slick. Long story short, don't monologue.
Challenge them on something challenging.
By the way, I have a topic for foolish decisions, dude. Remember yesterday you said you can prove me that I don't exist? Philosophically, I mean.
Let's not do this in a room with a load of other people, nice guy. If you want to go down, I've got 10 minutes. That should do it.
Okay, it's fine. Let's stay here. We can do it later on. It's fine.
I'm not going to do it in a room full of people. It's boring, philosophical, foundationalist shit. So.
I love that sort of stuff.
You're welcome to join us, Andrea.
No,
I'm not for being sleep by then.
We need something fresh and new.
Yeah.
Why don't you? Hey! I got a suggestion. I got a suggestion. Why don't you guys just ask Jim to make no flat earthers allowed, and then you won't have this problem.
It's not flat earth.
I told him this.
You're admitting you're a problem.
It's the nonsense.
You're admitting you're a problem.
The way that
I'm just saying that you seem to have a problem with flat earthers. All you got to do is ask Jim. Hey, why don't you?
I have a problem with nonsense.
Why don't you make flat earthers not allowed so that we don't have to deal with this nonsense?
I have a problem with nonsense.
Because it seems that all we have is nonsense. Just make us barred from the room.
To identify the problem properly.
If my service said you would be barred from the room.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just do that, and then you don't have to worry about it.
I would.
The only reason I'm here in the room at all because I'm under the impression that flat earthers are allowed here to come to debate. So that's what I thought the room was about.
Debating sometime.
So if you don't want that debate, then why don't you just make us not allowed?
Saying how the buildings work is not a debate, Slick. That was never a debate.
The only reason you're allowed here, Slick, is because you're not allowed to do it in every other server you go to.
Also, the shape of the Earth is not under debate.
He gets away with it here, but he can't in other servers. That's why he pollutes this server, just like you.
Well, just make us. All you have to do is